It was a quiet evening in the small town of Oak Ridge, the kind of evening where the sky turns orange as the sun sets and the air feels soft and cool. Alex, a boy of 10, was playing near the edge of the woods, kicking a ball against a tree. Shoes were worn, his shirt stained with dirt from hours of running around. He didn't mind, he loved being outside. The world was simpler that way. Just him, the trees, and his friends. One of his friends was Zara, though she wasn't exactly like the other kids in the neighborhood. Zara wasn't even from Oak Ridge. She wasn't even from Earth. She was an alien. At first, Alex had thought it was a joke. A little girl with green skin, bright purple eyes, and long silvery hair that shimmered in the sunlight. She didn't look human, but then again, neither did his grandmother's old pet parrot, and nobody called that weird. Zara had told him she was from a planet far away, a place where the stars were different, and the sky was purple instead of blue. Alex had laughed it off, calling her imagination too big for a kid her age. But after that, she showed him things no one could fake. Little gadgets that hummed and blinked, strange markings on her skin that glowed when she touched them, and her ability to speak words no one else could understand. That was when Alex knew she wasn't lying. Zara had appeared in Oak Ridge 1. Summer afternoon when Alex was playing by himself, she'd simply walked up to him, her bare feet barely making a sound on the ground, and smiled as if she knew him her whole life. Over the weeks that followed, the two of them had become close, almost like siblings. He would show her the simple wonders of Earth, like how to catch fireflies in jars. She'd teach him how to manipulate energy with his hands, something he still didn't fully understand. Today was different, though. It wasn't like their usual playtimes. Zara had been quiet all afternoon, staring up at the sky as if waiting for something. Her silvery hair hung loosely around her face, and her purple eyes seemed even brighter than usual, reflecting the deepening hues of the sunset. "Zara, what's wrong?" Alex asked, kicking the ball to her feet. Zara looked down at the ball and then back at him, her expression unreadable. "I have to leave soon," she said softly. "I won't be able to stay on Earth for much longer." Alex felt a strange chill run through him. He had known she was different, but the thought of her leaving had never crossed his mind. They'd spent so many afternoons together that the idea of her not being there felt impossible. Leave? But why? Alex's voice cracked as he said the words. Though he wasn't sure why he felt so upset, Zara sat down on a large rock and motioned for Alex to sit beside her. She gazed into the distance, her face serious now. "My people, they need me. I have a mission. I'm not meant to stay here. But I'll always remember you, Alex. You're the only human who has ever treated me like a friend." Lex didn't understand all the words Zara said. Didn't know what mission she was talking about, and he didn't really care. All he knew was that he didn't want to lose her. She had become more than just a friend to him. She had become someone important, someone he could trust. He thought for a moment, unsure of what to say. "But I don't want you to go. What if you never come back?" Zara smiled, but it wasn't a smile that made him feel better. It was a sad smile, the kind that made his chest tighten. "I'll always come back, Alex. But when I do, you'll be different. You'll be older. You'll have your own life. You won't be the same kid I know now." Alex frowned, his mind racing. He didn't want to grow up, not if it meant losing Zara. He wanted things to stay, just as they were, simple, happy, with Zara by his side. But there was something in her eyes that made him think he couldn't change that. She was part of something bigger, something he couldn't understand. Maybe that was why she had to leave. He looked at her for a long moment, thinking hard. Finally, he said, "When you come back, I'll be waiting for you." Zara raised an eyebrow, her purple eyes glimmering with curiosity. "You'll be waiting for me?" "Yeah," Alex said, his voice firm. "And when you come back, I'll marry you. When you're older, of course." Zara blinked, then laughed, a musical sound that filled the air. "You're silly, Alex." But Alex wasn't laughing. He was serious. He didn't know why he said it, but it felt right. Maybe it was because he knew he would always care about her, no matter how much time passed, no matter how much they both changed. Zara's laughter faded. She looked at him with something close to affection in her eyes. "You're a strange human, Alex. But if that's what you want, then I'll hold you to it." And just like that, she was gone. She didn't leave with a big farewell or a grand gesture. She simply walked away, back toward the woods, and vanished. Alex sat on the rock for a long time, staring at the empty spot where she had been. The sunset had deepened into night, and the stars were beginning to twinkle in the sky above. He didn't fully understand what had just happened, but he knew one thing for certain: he would never forget Zara. And somehow, deep inside, he knew that she would keep her promise to return. The years would pass, and Alex would grow, but the promise he made that day would stay with him. When Zara came back, he would be ready. Little did Alex know that childhood joke would turn into something far more serious. When Zara did return, nothing would be the same. As the seasons changed, so did the small town of Oak Ridge. The golden days of summer faded into the coolness of fall, and the crispness of winter swept through the town like a silent breeze. Leaves turned orange and fell from the trees, and children's laughter echoed less often through the streets as they grew older and busier with school and new adventures. Life moved on, and so did Alex. At first, he kept thinking about Zara. He'd sit on his porch in the evenings, staring up at the same sky they had once shared, waiting for her to return. The memory of her smile, her laugh, and the promise they'd made still felt alive inside him, like a secret they had hidden away together. But as time passed, the world around him became louder, and his thoughts of Zara began to fade into the background. By the time Alex was 16, he had almost forgotten about the little alien girl from his childhood. He had his own life to deal with, now new friends, school dances, and a growing sense of what it meant to be a young man in a world that had little room for childhood fantasies. His mind was filled with thoughts of college, sports, and girls. Zara's purple eyes, once so clear in his memory, now felt like a dream, blurry and distant, almost too impossible to hold on to. The promise he had made to her seemed like nothing. More than a child's wish, a silly joke that wasn't meant to be taken seriously. Alex had grown, his world had expanded, and he was moving forward, just like everyone else. Zara, to him now, was a distant memory, an alien promise that seemed ridiculous to remember. His life continued, much like the steady rhythm of Oak Ridge itself. The days blurred together in a mix of mundane routines. He hung out with his friends, went to school, and spent weekends at the local diner. Oak Ridge felt like the kind of place where nothing ever changed. People worked, went to church, and raised their families, living in the quiet comfort of routine. But even in the safety of Oak Ridge's monotony, something deep inside Alex couldn't fully shake: the memory of Zara, the strange gadgets she had shown him. The days spent playing games under the warm sunlight, they all lingered at the edge of his thoughts. But only for a moment, before he would push them back. Then one evening in late autumn, something unusual happened. Alex was walking home from the diner, his hands in his jacket pockets, his mind still on his plans for the weekend, when he looked up to the sky. For a brief second, something caught his eye, flashed like a streak of silver, cutting through the clouds. It was gone in an instant, too fast for him to properly process, but it felt like a whisper from another time. He stopped walking and stared up, the hairs on the back of his neck prickling. Was it a shooting star? A trick of the light? His rational mind quickly dismissed the thought, but a tiny spark of doubt lingered, something deep in his gut telling him he had seen something more than just a flash of light. He shrugged it off, telling himself it was nothing. Life had a way of doing that, didn't it? It's distracting you with its loud, demanding pace until you forgot the quiet moments that used to mean something. He turned his gaze back to the street, the distant hum of the town growing louder in his ears, drowning out his thoughts. But in the weeks that followed, things began to feel different, small, strange things. The faintest flicker of movement at the edge of his vision when no one else was around. A whisper on the wind that made him glance over his shoulder, expecting to see someone there. The strange sensation that he was being watched. It wasn't enough to be alarming, but it was enough to be unsettling. He began to notice things that felt out of place: the patterns in the stars at night, the peculiar way some people would stare at him when he passed by, like they knew something he didn't. Still, Alex convinced himself it was just his imagination. He had heard rumors from the older kids about UFO sightings and strange government cover-ups. But he didn't believe in that kind of stuff. He was practical, had a scholarship to the college he wanted, had plans, and he didn't have time for the weirdness of the past to creep back in. But despite himself, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was pulling at the edges of his mind, like a memory he had pushed too far down, trying to resurface. He tried to ignore it. After all, people grow up. They forget childish things, no matter how much they meant at the time. As the months went on, Oak Ridge seemed to return to its usual rhythm, and Alex's life moved forward, like the steady hum of a car engine. He focused on his studies, his friends, and his future. But every now and then, in the middle of an ordinary day, something would spark, a thought, a feeling, fleeting memory of a time when things were simpler, when Zara's name was still fresh on his lips, and the promise he made felt real. That was when Alex realized that some promises, even the ones made in jest, don't fade away. Even though he hadn't thought of Zara in years, the bond they shared wasn't something he could erase. It had been buried deep inside him, forgotten for a time, but now it was starting to stir again. And with that stirring, Alex felt a strange sense of anticipation. Something was coming, something bigger than anything he could understand. It was as if the universe was waiting, pulling him towards something, and it all started with a memory. It was just another typical Tuesday afternoon in Oak Ridge, the kind where the day seemed to stretch forever, and the world felt like it was moving at a pace far too slow for Alex. He was sitting on the porch of his small house, absent-mindedly, flipping through an old comic book, his feet resting on the railing as he stared out at the quiet neighborhood. The air had a slight chill to it, hinting at the approach of winter. The kind of day that made everything seem normal, even though, deep inside, something was beginning to shift. Alex had come to realize over the past few weeks that the strange sensations, the odd feelings, the flickering lights, the whispers of something being just out of reach were no longer something he could ignore. It wasn't paranoia exactly, it was just a knowing. He couldn't quite explain it, but he had a sense that something was coming. And then it happened. He heard the sound of footsteps approaching, but they weren't the familiar shuffle of his neighbor's shoes or the steady pace of cars passing by on the road. No, these were different. The rhythm of the steps was too deliberate, too sure of themselves. A light tap on the porch floor, almost as if the person walking was testing the ground beneath them, trying to gauge the world around them. Alex looked up from his comic book, expecting to see one of his friends, or maybe even his mom coming back from a trip to the store, but instead he froze, his heart skipping a beat. Standing in front of him was Zara, but not the little alien girl he remembered. No, this was different. This Zara was taller, her features sharper and more defined, the silver of her hair now cascading down her back like liquid light. Her eyes, those violet eyes that once sparkled with mischief now, looked so much older, wiser, filled with something Alex couldn't quite place. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with years of silence. Years of unspoken words, but it wasn't uncomfortable. There was something almost surreal about it, as if time had bent and twisted. No. They were meeting in some strange, timeless place. "Zara?" Alex managed to say, his voice cracking slightly, disbelief lacing every syllable. "Is it really you?" Zara smiled, though there was a sadness in it, something that seemed to speak of things Alex didn't yet understand. "It's me, Alex. I told you I'd come back." Alex stood up, the comic book falling from his hands. His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle in front of him. He had spent so many years convinced that Zara was a memory, something he had imagined during a childhood summer. But here she was, standing in front of him, as real as the trees in his yard. "You look so different," Alex said, stepping closer, still trying to make sense of everything. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again." Zara's smile softened. "I know. Duh. I wasn't sure if I'd ever make it back either." "Things are complicated, Alex. More complicated than you could imagine." Alex blinked, confusion clouding his thoughts. "Complicated? What do you mean? Where have you been? What's going on?" Zara didn't immediately answer. Instead, She took a step back, her gaze drifting to the sky, as if she could see something far beyond the horizon, something that Alex couldn't reach. I've been traveling, Alex. My planet needs me. But it's not just that anymore. Earth needs me too. Earth, Alex repeated, his mind whirling. He was starting to piece things together, but it didn't quite make sense. You're saying, Earth needs you? Zara nodded slowly. It's not just about coming back for a childhood promise anymore. I didn't come back just to see you, Alex. I came back because I need your help. I need you to understand. This is bigger than both of us. Alex's heart began to race, and his thoughts scattered in every direction. Zara, the alien girl he had met years ago, the girl he had promised to marry when she grew up, was asking for his help. But it wasn't the kind of help anyone could imagine. The weight of her words was sinking in, and Alex felt a growing sense of urgency that he couldn't shake. What do you need me to do? He asked, his voice steady now, despite the chaos swirling inside him. Zara looked back at him, her gaze intense. You need to come with me. There's no time to waste. The fate of both our worlds is at stake, and you're the key to everything. Before Alex could respond, the air around them seemed to shift. The quiet of Oak Ridge, the peacefulness of his childhood home, suddenly felt far away, as if they were standing on the edge of something monumental. Zara's gaze softened again, a slight sadness flickering in her eyes. I'm sorry, Alex. I didn't want to drag you into this, but there's no other choice. Earth and my people, we need to unite, and only you can make it happen. Alex's mind was still racing, his thoughts tumbling over each other like a whirlwind. How could this be happening? He had spent years moving on from the little girl who had once promised to return. Now here she was, grown, and asking him to help save the world. Both worlds. And with that, the world Alex had known, quiet, safe, predictable, seemed to crumble away. What had started as a childhood promise was now a weight he couldn't ignore. This wasn't just a reunion. This was the beginning of something far greater than either of them could have imagined. How do I help? Alex asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zara stepped closer, her eyes locking with his, and for the first time, Alex saw the depth of the responsibility she carried, the burden she had been bearing all this time. You'll understand soon enough, she said, her voice low, but filled with conviction. But first, we have to leave, now. The cool breeze had begun to pick up, ruffling the leaves in the trees and swirling the air around them. As Alex stood there, staring at Zara, his mind struggled to piece together what she had just said. Leave? Now? His voice shook with confusion and disbelief. You want me to just go with you, without even telling me what this is all about? Zara's expression softened, but there was a flicker of urgency behind her eyes. She had always been calm, collected and alien with a maturity far beyond her years. Yet, in that moment, Alex saw a crack in her composure, a glimpse of the burden she had carried all these years. I know this is a lot to take in, Zara said, her voice steady, though her eyes held a quiet desperation. But trust me, Alex, the time for questions is over. I have to move quickly if we're going to stop what's coming. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. His thoughts were scattered, and he could feel the weight of the world settling onto his shoulders. He had promised Zara he would marry her when she returned. He had never imagined she'd come back as a grown woman, asking for his help in a mission that could change the fate of two worlds. I don't even know what you're talking about, Alex admitted, his voice tinged with frustration. Why would Earth need your help? Why does it all have to involve me? Zara looked at him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. She took a deep breath and seemed to weigh her next words carefully. Because it's not just my planet that's in danger, Alex. It's Earth too. The balance between your world and mine is fragile. And if we don't act now, both of our worlds will fall apart. Alex's brow furrowed, his confusion growing. What balance? What are you talking about? Zara's gaze drifted to the sky once more, as if searching for the right words in the vast, endless expanse above them. There are forces at work that most humans don't even know about. The reason I was sent here in the first place wasn't just to learn about Earth or have a childhood friendship. I was chosen to be a part of something bigger, a mission that started long before you and I met. Alex's mind buzzed, but he stayed silent, urging her to continue. Zara took a step closer, lowering her voice so only Alex could hear. My people are called the Etherians. We come from a distant star system, far beyond the reach of your most advanced telescopes. Our species has existed for thousands of years, long before Earth even developed intelligent life. We've watched over this planet in secret for centuries. But now we're on the brink of war. Alex blinked, trying to process everything she was saying. War between your people and Earth. Not exactly, Zara replied, shaking her head. It's more complicated than that. The real threat comes from a third party, an ancient enemy that seeks to control both Earth and the Etherian people. They've infiltrated both worlds, manipulating events from the shadows, using the chaos they've sown to weaken us both. If we don't stop them, they'll bring both our worlds to their knees. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He could barely grasp the enormity of what she was telling him. But how does this involve me? Zara met his gaze, her expression serious now, almost as if she were searching his soul for answers. Because Alex, you're the key to ending this. The promise I made to you wasn't just a silly childhood joke. See your world and mine. Destinies are intertwined. Bond between us, the promise, is what will unite both our worlds. You and I, together, and create a force powerful enough to stop this enemy. Alex stared at her, his thoughts spinning. What do you mean together, like a bond? Zara nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Yes, it's a kind of union and ancient ritual that has been passed down through both our species. It's the only way to bring true peace between Earth and the Etherians. The problem is, it's not just a physical bond. It's deeper than that. The ritual requires a deep connection between two individuals, one from Earth, one from Etheria. You and I are the ones chosen to fulfill it. Alex's heart raced. A deep connection, you mean? We have to? Zara raised a hand, cutting him off gently. It's not about love, Alex. Not the way you're thinking. It's about trust, about sacrifice, about understanding the greater purpose that binds us all. If we can't make the ritual work, then both of our worlds will be lost to the enemy. Alex took a step back, his mind racing to catch up. I didn't ask for any of this. I'm just a kid who promised to marry a little alien girl. I didn't sign up to be part of some intergalactic peace treaty. Zara's gaze softened, her voice dropping to a whisper. No, it's hard to understand. But I can't do this alone. And you're the only one who can help me, Alex. The only one who can stop the destruction that's coming. The silence between them grew heavy, the weight of her words settling like a stone in Alex's chest. He felt trapped, unsure of what was real and what was fantasy. Could this really be happening? Was this all real? But as he looked at Zara, this woman who had once been a little girl in his backyard, now standing before him asking for his help, he realized something. He had known her in a way no one else could ever know her. The bond they shared, though strange, was undeniable. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. Kay, he said, his voice shaky but determined. I'll help you, but I need to know everything. I need to understand what's really going on. If we're doing this, we do it right. Zara's eyes softened, a glimmer of relief shining through the storm in her expression. Thank you, Alex. You won't regret this. But there's no more time to waste. We need to go, and we need to go now. With that, the two of them turned toward the horizon, ready to step into the unknown. A new world of danger, responsibility, and unimaginable stakes awaited them. But one thing was certain. As no longer just a boy caught in a promise, he was a part of something far greater than anything he could have ever imagined. The world outside seemed to blur as Alex and Zara made their way through the quiet streets of Oak Ridge. The evening light was fading, the stars beginning to prick the sky like tiny diamonds. But the weight of what Zara had revealed to him felt heavier than anything Alex had ever known. He had promised to help her, but he hadn't known what that really meant. The promise made in their childhood seemed so far removed from the reality of the situation now. He had never imagined that. The girl with silver hair and purple eyes would return as an adult, asking for his help to save not only her people, but his own as well. What had started as a casual joke, a simple childhood fantasy, was now something much bigger. The choice before him was no longer about a silly promise made years ago, it was about trust. About whether he could trust Zara and, more importantly, whether he could trust himself to rise to the challenge. Zara, Alex began, breaking the silence between them as they walked side by side. You keep saying that I'm the key to all of this, but how do I know I can trust you? I mean, this whole thing, alien worlds, rituals, enemies I've never even heard of, it's a lot to swallow. I don't even know who or what we're really up against. Zara slowed her pace slightly, her footsteps growing quieter as she seemed to weigh his words. She didn't look at him at first, but instead she focused on the path ahead, the trees casting long shadows under the streetlights. After a moment, she stopped and turned to face him. Her eyes locked onto his, and Alex saw something in them that made him hesitate, a raw vulnerability that she hadn't shown before. I understand your doubts, Alex, Zara said, her voice low and calm. Believe me, I didn't want to drag you into this, but there's no one else. I've been waiting for years, and I came back for you because you're the only one who can help me complete the bond. You're the only one who can help stop the enemy from destroying everything. Alex could feel the sincerity in her words, but there was still a part of him that recoiled. He was just a regular guide, just a human in a small town, caught up in something that felt more like a dream than reality. How could someone like him, someone with no special abilities or training, be expected to make a difference in something as monumental as this? But why me? Alex asked, his voice thick with frustration. You could have gone to anyone? Why did you choose me? What makes me so special? Zara's gaze softened, and for a moment Alex saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes. It's not about being special, Alex. It's about the connection we have. You were chosen because of that promise we made. What we share is not just some childish wish, it's deeper than that. The bond between us will unite both our worlds in a way that no one else can. Only you and I can fulfill the ritual and bring the balance that's needed to defeat the enemy. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, didn't know what to believe anymore. The world he had known seemed to be crumbling, shifting beneath his feet, and he was left standing in the wreckage of his own expectations. Zara wasn't just a friend, a childhood companion. She was an alien, a part of something far bigger than himself. And yet, she was standing here, asking for his trust, asking him to believe that he was capable of something he couldn't even begin to understand. How do you know all this? Alex asked, his voice quieter now. How do you know I'm the one who can help? What if I mess this up? What if I'm not what you need? Zara took a step closer to him, her gaze intense. She placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him as if to ground him in that moment, reminding him that he wasn't alone in this. Alex, she said gently, I know it's overwhelming, but I've seen it in my mind. I've seen what could happen if we don't stop this enemy. I've seen the devastation, the destruction, and the collapse of everything we know. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to trust me, to trust that we're in this together. Her words lingered in the air between them, and Alex found himself swallowing the knot in his throat. The doubt, the fear, the uncertainty was still there, but something else was growing inside him, a sense of responsibility, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Zara wasn't just some alien girl who had shown up out of nowhere. She was real, and so was the mission she had come to complete. Whether Alex liked it or not, whether he was ready or not, this was his reality now. This was his chance to make a difference, to prove that he wasn't just some ordinary person. He could do this. He had to. Okay, Alex said, the word coming out more forcefully than he expected. I'll trust you. I'll do what it takes, but I need to know everything. No more secrets. No more vague explanations. You have to tell me what's really going on. I can't do this if I don't understand it all. Zara nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. I'll know everything, Alex, I promise you. But there's no turning back now. We have to move quickly. The enemy is closer. Then we realize, and they've already begun their plans to destabilize both our worlds. For the first time since meeting Zara again, Alex felt a clear sense of purpose. The path ahead was unclear, and the dangers were real, but there was no going back. His childhood promise had grown into something far greater than he could have imagined. He was no longer just a kid making a silly joke. He was part of something much bigger, a mission that would determine the fate of Earth, of Zara's people, and maybe even of humanity itself. Together, they walked into the unknown, bound by trust and an unspoken understanding that their lives would never be the same again. The wind had picked up as the two of them moved through the town, their footsteps steady but quick. The streets of Oak Ridge, usually so quiet and calm, felt alien, now empty, and full of waiting. The sense of urgency that had settled between Alex and Zara was undeniable, a pressure that Alex could feel in his bones, growing stronger with every step they took. They didn't speak much during the walk. Zara's mind was clearly miles away, her focus sharp, and Alex could see the weight of responsibility in her expression. It wasn't just Earth she was trying to save, it was her entire species, her entire planet. And somehow, that responsibility had found its way to him. Every word she had said, every revelation about the enemy, had only served to deepen the mystery and complexity of the situation. There was so much Alex still didn't understand, so much that didn't make sense, but there was no time for questions now. Finally, they reached the outskirts of Oak Ridge, where the small town melted away into the dense forest that surrounded it. A quiet, almost eerie stillness hung in the air, the sound of the wind and the occasional rustle of leaves their only company. Zara stopped in her tracks, turning to face Alex. "This is where it begins," she said, her voice low but resolute. "Everything we've been preparing for, everything that's been building up to this moment, starts now." Alex looked around, scanning the quiet woods. He had no idea what she meant by that, but something about the way she spoke made him feel that something monumental was about to happen. "We're going to need to move quickly," Zara continued. "The enemy is already making their move. They've infiltrated both worlds, Earth and Ethriand. Their agents are everywhere, even here in your world. They've already begun to destabilize your planet. We don't have the luxury of time." Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "But you're saying the enemy is already here? How do we stop them if they're already in place?" Zara's eyes darkened. They've been working in the shadows for a long time. Their goal is simple: chaos. They want to break the balance between our worlds and create enough disorder to make both planets ripe for domination. Once they destabilize everything, they'll take control. Our only chance to stop them is to act fast. The longer we wait, the more damage they can do. The reality of the situation hit Alex hard. This wasn't some fantasy. There was no going back now. He wasn't just a kid who made a promise to an alien girl. He was part of something bigger. He had been thrown into a battle that spanned two worlds, one he knew and one he was just beginning to understand. "But what can we do?" Alex asked, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and disbelief. "What am I supposed to do?" "I don't have any powers. I'm not like you, Zara." Zara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You might not think you have powers, but you have something far more important: courage. Alex, the strength to do what's right, even when it seems impossible. That's all we need right now." Alex took a deep breath, forcing his mind to focus. "So what's the plan? How do we stop them?" Zara's expression became even more serious. "We need to locate the central node, the place where the enemy's power is concentrated. It's hidden, protected by their agents, and only by getting there can we disrupt their plan. But it's not going to be easy. We'll be up against everything they've set in motion, and we'll have to move fast." Alex's thoughts raced. A central node? Agents? Disrupt their plan? The more Zara explained, the more Alex realized just how unprepared he was for what lay ahead. But he couldn't back out now, not when things were this far gone, not when the fate of two worlds rested on his shoulders. "We'll need help," Alex said, his voice suddenly firmer. "We can't do this alone." Zara nodded. "I've already reached out to a few allies. They're waiting for us. But we have to get to the node before the enemy can move their forces into position. If they complete their takeover, it will be impossible to stop them." Alex glanced around, feeling the weight of Zara's words settle over him like a heavy cloak. It wasn't just about a promise anymore. It wasn't just about the bond they shared. This was bigger than that. Earth was at risk, and it was up to him and Zara to to stop the chaos from spreading any further. "Let's go," Alex said, determination building in his chest. "We don't have much time." Zara gave him a quick, approving nod, and together they stepped into the forest, their path illuminated only by the dim light of the stars above. As they moved deeper into the woods, the air seemed to grow heavier, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The journey ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but Alex had no choice now. He was in this until the end. With every step they took, the world around them seemed to fade away. The only thing that mattered now was reaching the enemy's stronghold before it was too late. The air was thick with tension as Alex and Zara moved deeper into the heart of the forest. The shadows between the trees stretched like dark fingers, reaching out to grab them. Each step they took felt more uncertain than the last. Alex had always been a curious kid, but this was different. This was no adventure, no simple quest to explore hidden places. This was real, and the stakes were higher than anything he had ever imagined. For the first time, he could feel the weight of the entire universe pressing on his shoulders. The enemy they were up against wasn't just some group of invaders. It was a force that had been planning its conquest for centuries. A threat that spanned worlds, civilizations, and futures. It had been so long in the making, and now Alex was caught in the middle of it all. "How much further?" Alex asked, his voice strained as he pushed through the underbrush. The dense trees seemed to close in around them, the path narrowing with each passing minute. Zara didn't respond immediately, her focus fixed ahead, as if she could see beyond the trees, beyond the darkened sky. Finally she spoke, her voice low, almost like a whisper. "Not far now. The central node is just ahead, but we'll be walking straight into enemy territory. We'll have to be careful." Alex felt a rush of adrenaline course through him, could hear his heartbeat in his ears, each thump reverberating in the silence of the forest. Every sense was heightened. He could feel the coolness of the night air on his skin, the crackling of dry leaves beneath his feet, the faint rustling of something unseen moving in the shadows. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked, his voice faltering. What if we're too late? What if we can't stop them?" Zara stopped in her tracks and turned to face him, her expression grave. There was no trace of the playful girl he had known as a child only. The hardened resolve of someone who had seen the weight of responsibility and understood its cost. "We're already too late," Zara said quietly, the weight of her words sinking. The enemy has already begun to move. The central node is the last point of control. If we don't stop them now, they'll gain the power to rewrite both our worlds completely. Alex's mind raced, rewriting entire worlds. It was a concept that seemed impossible, but Zara's words felt too real to ignore. He looked at her, wondering just how much of this she had known, how much of it she had been carrying alone. What if we fail? Alex's voice was barely a whisper, fear creeping into his tone. What happens then? Zara didn't answer immediately. She stepped closer to him, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "Then we lose everything," she said simply. "But we don't have the luxury of thinking about failure. We have to do this for our worlds, for the future." Alex swallowed, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. He had thought he was just helping an old friend, someone he had made a promise to, but this was bigger. This wasn't just about Zara anymore. This was about two entire worlds and the people in them. They moved forward again, but the tension between them grew. It wasn't the kind of tension you could fight or run from. It was the kind of tension that would pull you apart if you didn't face it head on. The path ahead was unclear, the future uncertain. And the only thing keeping Alex going was the same promise he had made as a child, the promise to help Zara, no matter what it took. As they neared the clearing, the air grew colder. Zara stopped, raising a hand to signal for Alex to be quiet. The trees parted before them, revealing a dark circular structure, massive. Alien machine embedded into the earth, pulsating with a strange, unnatural glow. The central node. It was surrounded by guards, silent figures cloaked in shadow, their eyes glowing faintly with the same unnatural light. Alex's heart skipped a beat. They had reached the enemy's stronghold. Was it? Zara's grip tightened on his arm, her expression hardening. This is where it gets dangerous, she said softly. We have to disrupt the node's power before they can activate it completely. It's our only chance. Alex looked at her, the weight of their mission hanging between them. He had trusted her, trusted this journey. But now that they were here, faced with the reality of their task, doubt crept in again. How do we stop it? Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara's eyes locked onto his. The vulnerability that had once been there, now replaced by something else, a quiet determination. We use the bond, the ritual. It's the only way to override the node's power. But there's a catch. She paused, her face becoming even more serious. To activate it, we both have to be fully connected emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It's a fusion of our energies, our very beings. Alex frowned, unsure of what she meant. What are you saying? Zara stepped closer, her breath shallow. In the cold night air, it's a choice, Alex. To stop them, we have to give up everything. The ritual requires a sacrifice, a complete merging of ourselves, with no turning back. Alex's heart stopped for a moment. Sacrifice. His mind struggled to grasp the weight of her words. What does that mean for us? It means, Zara whispered, her voice thick with the weight of her responsibility, that once we begin, there's no going back. We'll become something different. It's the only way to stop them. The realization hit Alex like a physical blow. This wasn't just about saving the world. This was about everything, their futures, their identities, everything. They had known. Zara was asking him to risk it all, to become part of something far greater than either of them. But would it be enough? Was the cost too great? Are you ready for that, Alex? Zara asked, her voice barely audible as she looked into his eyes. The silence between them stretched, the weight of the choice pressing down on Alex like a mountain. He could feel his heart racing, a mix of fear, determination, and something else, something that felt like the final thread that bound them together. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew this: if they failed, everything would be lost. And if they succeeded, the world as they knew it would never be the same again. I don't have a choice, Alex whispered, his voice filled with resolve. Let's do it. And with that, they took the first step toward the unknown. The choice was made. The final battle had begun.